What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. And in today's segment, we're going to go over the upcoming Thursday night matchup that's going to feature the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, both of these teams are in the race for the AFC playoff hunt. As far as it stands right now, both teams are definitely in contention to possibly make the playoffs, but this game is really going to dictate the future for both teams depending on what the result is. Just to give you guys a quick update of where both teams stand right now, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are currently sitting at a 6-8 record. They're coming off of a pretty big win against the Dallas Cowboys last week in overtime by the score of 40-34. And then to kick it over to the Jets, they're currently sitting at a 7-7 record, and they're coming off of a pretty tough loss against the Detroit Lions last week, losing that game by the score of 20-17. So this is a big game for both teams. Both these teams need a win to stay alive in the AFC playoff hunt. So Kev, to kick this one to you, we've got the Jets and the Jaguars going at it on Thursday Night Football. Who do you think is going to win and why?
So I'm definitely going with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence has been playing exceptionally well. Almost 4,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I mean, the come from behind victory just shows his poise, leadership. I mean, he was able to make some big throws, crunch time when it mattered the most. And I think that that's going to be pivotal when playing a very tough defense like the New York Jets have. We all know that the Jets defense is very stingy when it comes to allowing points, but we all know that they can have potential big breaks in terms of their rushing defense. So look for Travis Etienne to have a very big game. I think that with the weather being rainy and cold, it very well could be a run heavy game, very low scoring. I think Jacksonville's defense may surprise a lot of people just because they were able to really get to the quarterback in Dak Prescott last week. They were able to force a lot of turnovers with that pressure. And of course, they were able to limit what Dallas's offense was able to do in that second half last week. And I think that a team like this, as young as they are, with the veteran leadership of Doug Peterson behind the helm at the head coaching position, that is just going to give a team like this confidence. When you have a young, put together team with a very inexperienced leadership core like a Trevor Lawrence, like a Christian Kirk, like a Travis Etienne that haven't really played a lot of meaningful football later in the year, this could be the perfect opportunity for Jacksonville to stun a New York Jets team. Now, I know that the Jets played a heartfelt, tight game against Detroit last week, and I know that Zach Wilson had probably the best game of the season, if not in his career, to some may say, for what some may say, but I don't have faith in Zach. I think that Zach will choke. I think that Zach may let that get to his head. And I just truthfully believe that Jacksonville's defense is going to find a way to really get under his skin, make him make errant throws. And again, if they do lean on this rushing attack, it is going to be very limited to what they can do, as Jacksonville is one of the better rush defenses in the NFL. So I think truthfully, it's going to be a matter of who makes the first mistake. I think that Trevor Lawrence is an overall better quarterback than Zach Wilson. So if they do have to pass, I'm going to have a lot more faith in Trevor. And at the end of the day, with New York slipping in that AFC East, and of course Buffalo and Miami not necessarily running away with it, as Miami has lost 3 in a row, I would probably say that New York's chances are slim to none, especially for a wild card spot, as opposed to Jacksonville being one game away from Tennessee. Tennessee is 7-7, Jacksonville is 6-8. So if Jacksonville were to win and Tennessee were to lose, especially with Malik Willis starting for the rest of the year, I would say that Jacksonville has a very good chance to win the AFC South and make their first postseason berth since, I believe, 2017, when Blake Bortles was behind the helm.
Kev, I understand where you're going with this game. I think it is going to be a competitive matchup when this game does go final. But I'm going to go with the Jets in this one. And it's simply just because of one of the points that you outlined, and it's their defense. I understand that the Jets have been up and down this season. And the record indicates that they're at a 500 record right now, but they're not losing because of the defense. The defense has been playing pretty much stellar football as far as I've seen it for most of the year. It's really been the offense that has dragged in some of these games, and that's really been the biggest difference maker as far as I've seen it. But in this game particularly, with the weather being, I think, potentially a pretty big factor, with it being rainy, temperatures in the mid 40s, I think that's actually going to favor the Jets in this one over the Jaguars. And I'm not basing this off of the offensive output of both teams because, Kev, like you said, I do believe that Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson at this point in their respective careers. But I think the challenge that Trevor has is a little bit more steep in this game just because that Jets defense held the Detroit Lions last week to 20 points. And when you've looked at the Lions this year, they've been able to put up points in bunches. We're talking 30, 35, sometimes even 40 points a game. And the fact that they were able to do that against the Lions last week, despite it being in a loss, I thought was impressive. And I think going up against an inexperienced quarterback like the Trevor Lawrence in this game with an inexperienced offense like the Jaguars, I think it's going to favor the Jets pretty heavily in this one. I wouldn't be surprised that Jets defense can get a turnover or two off of Jacksonville's offense and possibly create those turnovers to get points on their side of the ball. Now, to me, the biggest difference maker in this game is what's going to happen with this Jets offense led by Zach Wilson. Mike White is not going to play. He was already ruled out. And that means that Zach Wilson is going to get his second straight start. Now, granted, I wouldn't say that he had the best game last week, but I didn't think that he had his worst game of his career last week. I thought he did enough to put the Jets in a position to tie the game, to send it into overtime. It's just they couldn't convert a field goal to tie the game, to send it into OT. So if Zach Wilson's going to try to lead this team to a win, he has to be a little bit more effective, can't turn the ball over. And as far as I see it, it shouldn't just be a Zach Wilson led show offensively. I think if they're able to run the ball well, I think this is going to be a pretty successful formula for the Jets here. So, you tie that in with what I think the defense is going to do, force some turnovers against Jacksonville. I think the Jets are going to win this one in a fairly competitive game. I don't see this one being a runaway game for either team. Most of these Thursday night games are relatively low scoring anyway. When you factor in the weather conditions, like I mentioned earlier, I think this game is going to probably be somewhere in the high teens, maybe low 20s when it's all said and done, as far as the point totals as I see it. If I had to put a score on this game, I'm going to go with the Jets winning this one by the score of 23-17. I think it will be a one possession game when it's all said and done. I just think that the Jets are going to make the plays that need to be made. And I think in Jacksonville's case, they have to travel from Jacksonville, go up to New York. It's going to be a little bit colder. And I think they'll be up for the challenge, but I think they're going to make some mistakes in this game, turn the ball over a couple times, and I think the Jets are going to take advantage of it. So I got the Jets winning this game. They would bump up to an 8-7 record and essentially keep their playoff hopes alive. And when it comes to Jacksonville, we'll kind of see where they go from here if they lose this game, because I think it's going to throw their playoff chances into a little bit of a tailspin if they lose this one.